Hello, everyone. I'm Diana Henderson, and I'm going to be sharing my perspective on securing product management in this AI first era. I've worked as a product manager delivering offerings across hardware, software, and consulting services. And now more than ever, we must really protect the data, the assets, and workflows that we're using to deliver products while embracing AI in our ways of working. In this session, we're going to be exploring how AI is being adopted and transforming industries and areas within product management. We're going to be looking at the value that AI brings, the security challenges that arise, mitigation actions, and a plan for how to implement this over time. When we look at the overall AI market, this has really grown significantly. And this year alone, organizations are projected to really spend about $337 billion worldwide on AI supported technologies. Organizations are also investing in security to be able to combat cybersecurity threats broadly and specifically where AI is deployed. AI assets have become a prime target for bad actors. Approximately 13% of all organizations have experienced some kind of security attack that's been specifically targeted to their AI models or applications. We're seeing deepfake technology, which historically has been lagging in some areas, but it's now become a lot more sophisticated and easier to deceive, while the use of shadow AI is really taking off and taking a toll on security teams as they're being challenged to monitor and really regulate it. Even malware-based intrusions are down as bad actors are really opting more for social engineering to be able to gain access and exploit valuable assets. From an industry perspective, AI is really being adopted across all industries, and in particular, disrupting financial services, healthcare, retail, and energy sectors. Organizations really want to be able to protect their sensitive client data, to be able to forecast demand for their products, meet regulatory compliance mandates, and modernize and really change their infrastructure while they're adopting AI. When we look at financial services, this could mean using machine learning models to be able to better analyze transactions, looking at patterns in real time and trying to be able to avoid flagging legitimate transactions as fraudulent. In healthcare, this could be AI being able to process a large amount of imaging data, really helping clinicians to make faster, more accurate diagnoses and to give better health outcomes to their patients. In retail, this is looking at how to manage your inventory. And with predictive analytics, you can really better forecast product demand to know what's on your shelves and when to restock so that you have materials and products that are continuously moving throughout your supply chain. And finally, with energy, in the energy sector, providers are often faced with aging infrastructure and inefficient operations. And with the transition to renewable energy, security vulnerabilities are getting exposed in legacy systems. And so operators are looking to leverage machine learning to be able to improve their infrastructure efficiency and to better predict energy demands and optimize energy distribution and storage. And so AI is going to really be continuing to evolve in these spaces and really across all industries. So now let's transition to product management and kind of defining what that is. So product management is the strategic function that's responsible for guiding a product through its entire life cycle. And this is taking an initial idea through market validation, building the product and launching it and trying to continue to make enhancements while it's in the market. Product managers really are serving as kind of the central hub that's connecting customer needs, business objectives, and technical capabilities of a product or portfolio. So this can involve defining a strategy and a vision for what the product will do, who's it going to serve, what problems it'll address, and profitability. And you usually are working with a cross-functional team that's across sales and engineering, design, marketing, support, even finance, and all those teams are working together to grow a product in the market. As a product manager, you have a lot of data points, or even sometimes you have incomplete data that you're using to make decisions. But ultimately, you're really the one that's responsible for the overall product's success. With AI first product management, you're now leveraging AI tools with data in really every aspect of the product management lifecycle to be able to make decisions and shape how products are being developed and improve workflows. So let's take a look at each of these areas. When we look at decision making, This is kind of looking at how AI can identify patterns and predict outcomes. So to really help you quickly prioritize your next steps with greater accuracy. AI can find data relationships that maybe you've missed, and that can really help you to make decisions in a matter of hours or minutes instead of waiting for weeks or months. Netflix, as an example, is a company that's using machine learning to be able to analyze its subscribers' viewing patterns, and it makes correlated content recommendations to their users as a result. When we look at product development, so this is really where teams are being able to leverage learning from AI to be able to adjust their product designs based on real-time user feedback. And so this is going to help product managers really shorten that feedback loop where they're integrating client feedback back into their product roadmaps. And being able to scale in personalization to each user is something that AI is helping them to do. When we look at Shopify, for an example, they have a fraud detection system that's using AI, and that can enable product managers to really set the risk thresholds for their merchants and design better workflows for their experience. Finally, we can look at workflow integration. And so this is really about AI being able to do routine tasks like document generation or customer feedback synthesis, which is a major productivity boost for product managers. For example, the team at Zendesk is leveraging AI to be able to automatically categorize and prioritize their support tickets. So product managers can identify the most common user pain points and feature requests among thousands of customer interactions, which is a huge, huge time savings. So when you look at this overall, we can now start to ask, how can AI make the entire product experience fundamentally better? So we'll dive into that and key areas next. The AI product management toolkit is something that really comprises, I would say, 6 key areas where product managers are using AI. And these are analytics and data intelligence, user research and feedback analysis, requirements and documentation, competitive intelligence, development process, and personalization and UX. And so we'll look at all of these in more detail and their security challenges that are come about due to AI. And then we'll explore some of the technology and methods that can be used to adopt and mitigate those risks. So when we look at analytics and data intelligence, so here we can utilize this to surface incredible insights, such as usage behavior or the likelihood that a customer adopts a new feature, for instance. And product teams can start to use AI here for making much faster decisions, to be able to scale the insights that they're gathering across many different users. But one of the challenges that kind of comes up in this space is that AI might start to reveal incredibly sensitive personal information. You could imagine like a media streaming service company that's using AI, and it inadvertently publicizes the viewing patterns of certain users to unauthorized analysts. Well, in this case, AI could potentially infer medical conditions about a user based on how they're watching historically health documentaries, for instance, or they may try to assume certain political affiliations based on their consumption of the news. So to combat this, organizations can implement security controls like data residency and segmentation, which is going to put a physical and logical separation around the data based on geographic location or client boundaries or even sensitivity levels. So this is going to help to contain breached data if one area is compromised and protect really highly sensitive data to be able to meet regulatory requirements like GDPR in Europe and PCI DSS for financial institutions. Another approach is with zero trust access, which uses continual role-based authentication. When you think about the notion of never trust, always verify, that's enabling you to be able to authenticate who a user is and authorize their access only if it's valid. There's also AI-specific monitoring you can do through security posture management tools. And here you can observe AI systems really throughout their life cycle. Looking at all these approaches, they're really helping to increase productivity overall by isolating key assets that may happen during a breach. You're vetting who has access to those assets based on their role, and you're doing continual monitoring of the environment so that product teams can focus really more so on their primary responsibilities. One example of this is with Microsoft Security Copilot, where they're using AI to be able to analyze vast amounts of security data. They're identifying patterns and then being able to prioritize threats using that in real time. So the next area, user research and feedback analysis. So exploring this area, you can kind of imagine using AI to pour over millions of customer reviews as an example, looking at product inquiries or support tickets, and then categorizing that customer feedback for sentiment analysis. So you can get a really comprehensive view of your entire customer base's impression of a particular product. Here, product managers can use AI to identify pain points and surface certain customers' needs. And that's going to really help them to prioritize features that they're putting on the roadmap. But this can also be where the customer voice is getting exploited. So rogue actors, they may want to use AI to, let's say, generate fake customer personas or product reviews that would then skew the perceived customer sentiment away from reality. Another risk could be that AI models, their input data could potentially get contaminated. For instance, if your competitor is using the same AI vendor solutions that your team is using, without oversight, both teams' data could be commingled and the AI could produce unreliable insights. To try and deal with this, organizations can be using things like prompt injection defense to be able to configure sanitization or context isolation for the input that's going into the model itself. There's also credential protections, things like multi-factor authentication and passwordless systems that can block access to sensitive data and enforce the use of client-specific AI models. And in that case, you're really designating that the model and its inputs are only going to be used for a certain entity or a certain company. They can also replace real sensitive customer data with more realistic synthetic alternatives. We'll see Airbnb doing this by coalescing the insights they're getting from across their entire customer reviews, but they're able to do that without centralizing their sensitive, unique guest data. So for requirements and documentation, when we think about this, requirements from customers and stakeholders are really kind of the core input into a particular product roadmap. While documentation, we're using that to drive either internal team action or externally to drive awareness about our product. Product managers can use AI to generate product requirement documents or PRDs, and the AI can take the structure and style and tone, the level of detail from prior PRDs, and combine that with more recent requirements to build new documents in a much faster way. Challenges here can, however, arise with protecting those documents as well as the prompts that are used to generate them from unauthorized access. And so you wouldn't want to have an AI model reveal trade secrets or violate any kind of security requirements when they're automatically generating code or for instance, software testing. Teams may also potentially incur costs if these are confidential assets that are getting accessed. So organizations can try to implement system prompt protections, doing that by encrypting the prompt storage and enforcing some kind of like accessing log access to get to those particular assets. They can also use IP classification to keep sensitive data safe with automated detection and redaction capabilities of proprietary information. There's template sanitization, which is defining standards for pre-approved document templates. So the outputs can contain certain information, or they could exclude sensitive information, like, for instance, architecture details. We see this happening with Google, who has created their own kind of secure AI framework that's preventing system prompt leakage. So that's requirements and documentation. So when we look at competitive intelligence, so it's always a challenge to stay current with the latest competitive data, whether it's learning about a new entrant to the market or you're learning about news from an existing competitors' products, their prices, or their strategy. And with AI, product managers can glean insights from competitive intelligence. They can monitor competitor websites and really analyze macro level market trends. There's always a risk potentially that the tools that you're using to conduct that competitive intelligence could get discovered through your own digital footprint. And the challenge is that competitors may try to go on the offense as a result of this, potentially feeding false information to your competitive intelligence systems to throw you off track. And if you are monitoring competitors' websites and other digital assets, you'll want to do so without infringing upon any kind of copyright or terms of service. So one thing to consider here is implementing ethical scraping policies and automating compliance to be able to meet those terms of service before you're collecting the data. You can also authenticate your data sources before monitoring or doing any kind of mining of the data. And that'll keep you from acquiring misinformation and potentially making poor product decisions based on that. You see in Thomson Reuters, for instance, that they're using their own clear technology to be able to always provide legally compliant competitive intelligence with built-in regulatory guardrails. And CB Insights, by their own policies, they're only using publicly available info with automated terms of service and compliance checking so that they avoid handling insider sensitive data. And instead, they can focus on gleaning insights from public data, which is essentially hiding in plain sight. With the development process, here we're kind of looking at modern software development. AI is deployed now throughout the entire development pipeline, and AI is using historical delivery data to be able to predict new product timelines or identify bottlenecks, and even to help automate things like testing scenarios. All of this to really help accelerate the product delivery. But when AI prediction systems are embedded into these development pipelines, they too could become attack vectors and expose sensitive business logic or generate flawed test scenarios, for instance, that kind of make you miss critical security vulnerabilities. So we can use things like supply chain security to protect against attacks from third-party tools. We see that with Red Hat, for instance, who's securing their AI machine learning package repositories to ensure that only verified and clean AI libraries are available to developers. Another method is using automated vulnerability detection, and this can help by exposing any kind of hidden vulnerabilities in AI development tools to so that you can kind of be proactive about identifying vulnerabilities, and that'll help you really accelerate your security testing. We see this with Bank of America as an example. They are automatically scanning their AI-powered applications for vulnerabilities and doing that before they're even deployed in production. And finally, teams can use as well secure development environments to protect their IP and really kind of enable a secure AI-assisted coding approach without compromising their development productivity. Finally, we talk about personalization and user experience. So with this, AI can, I would say, adapt products to deliver more personalized content than they have been able to do in the past. And product teams are really now in a position to optimize user flows and deliver more tailored, customized experiences at scale to all their users. The risk here is that as more personal data is being collected, you could potentially have erosion in data privacy. And so, for example, you could have user profiles out there that are being shared across multiple platforms without any kind of consideration for data sensitivities. So we can start to use things like privacy preservation machine learning, and that's going to be able to help using federated learning to train the AI models on decentralized data sets without sharing the raw data itself. And that'll help alleviate some of the privacy concerns that are out there. There's also on-device AI processing, which is another approach to prevent any kind of personal data from leaving a device. That's going to reduce latency and it can be used offline to help reduce the risk of a data breach. We see this happening with BMW, who is using edge AI computing technology for real-time driver assistance, and they're basically processing their camera and their sensor data locally without transmitting any kind of personal driving patterns outside of that closed system. So that's kind of a view of those 6 areas across product management that are now really starting to embed and infuse AI. So now let's transition to mitigation steps, and we'll look at some of the things we talked about previously in the last section, these controls in the context of technology, process, and people. So when we think about technology controls, we're talking about data protection and encryption, and then that's really about encrypting AI training data across all your environments. There's input validation and sanitation methods, and those are really about being able to filter out malicious prompts and sanitize the inputs to your AI systems. There's also, think about monitoring and detection systems. So you can enable more continuous observation of AI behavior. You're looking for anomalies, any kind of unauthorized access or unusual output patterns. That could be due to drift in the model. And then finally, security auditing and testing. And that's where you want to be conducting AI-specific, for instance, red team exercises and any kind of adversarial testing protocols. So that's kind of a high-level view of your security controls. When we talk about process, or rather technology controls, when we talk about process controls, these are more about methods and frameworks for how we're going to securely work with AI. And so in this area, we think about risk management and assessments to be able to identify, assess, and mitigate any kind of AI-specific risks throughout the entire product lifecycle. Those risk assessments could be implemented by sector or by industry. There's privacy and protection and compliance, and this comprises of formal assessments to ensure that your AI systems are complying with data protection regulations and user privacy expectations. So GDPR, HIPAA, CCPA, for instance, and this is going to address really the growing regulatory challenges with AI integration, focused on privacy preservation and any kind of consent with user data. And then there's vendor oversight and supply chain security. And these are really focusing on how you handle credentials, how you manage credentials, and any kind of AI-specific contractual protections that we have. And then finally, incident response and recovery. And so here we're talking about being able to detect and contain and finally recover from AI security incidents. Finally, when we look at the human-based controls, this is really about guidance for the direct user actions that are impacted by AI. And this really kind of starts, I would say, first within an organization, you want to have support from your executive leadership team. That executive sponsorship is really essential to ensure that there's a unified investment and approach to AI security broadly across your organization. There's also security education and training. And so this is where you want to be able to train your internal teams on how to recognize AI-specific threats like prompt injection, data poisoning, and model manipulation, for instance. And so everyone has a feel for what are their own individual responsibilities, those within their own departments, and how that is co-managed across your organization. Cross-functional alignment and governance. Here we want to ensure that your security and legal and engineering and product teams are all collaborating on any kind of decisions that need to be made dealing with AI risk, because it's going to affect all those areas. Ethical guidelines for responsible AI use. This is really about trying to prevent any kind of misuse and maintain user trust. And then we look at credential hygiene and that practices, and that's really about trying to protect against any kind of credential harvesting, which is really one of the top ways now that there are breaches. And so overall, organizations, if you have these proper controls in place, you can likely save about $1.9 million per breach and, reduce the overall impact of those breaches, reduce the time that it takes to detect those breaches by an average of about 80 days. So finally, when we're talking about taking action, we want to think about what should we do first, right? What are the things we need to focus on in the interim, the near term, midterm, and then longer term strategy as we're embracing AI and thinking about securing our environments. So in the near term, some immediate steps you can take are dealing with first understanding what are your current AI tools. And so this is about taking an inventory of your environment and how your AI tools are accessing your environment. You want to review your vendor contracts. So think about developing an accountability matrix across all of your partners, who's responsible for what, and the overall partner ecosystem. There are prompt injection testing strategies that you can use to help reduce any kind of credential harvesting attacks, and deploying an AI security monitoring capability to help to contain any kind of breaches and lower those costs in the near term. From a midterm perspective, now we want to start deploying AI security posture management tools, and this is about building out a comprehensive AI visibility capability within your environment. We want to start to do more credential management programs and to eliminate most of the common attack paths that you could see. We want to start training our teams, as mentioned earlier, and building out that team readiness for being able to recognize any kind of AI-specific threats. And now building out finally an AI governance framework. So this is about focusing on more systemic risk management, and you can do that again by sector or industry. From a long-term strategy perspective, we want to start deploying monitoring systems. And this is about kind of real-time AI behavior analysis and doing so across your entire environment. We want to start to build out more federated learning. And so again, this speaks to more privacy and building out more advanced privacy architecture in your environment. We want to start to establish security auditing. And this is really focused on overall regulatory compliance across all of your assets. And then finally starting to create incident response procedures. And that could be done as well if you want to do like sector specific playbooks, as there are unique things to consider for each industry. So that's really all the information that I have. Thank you for listening. That's my LinkedIn information, and would love to connect with you guys. And I hope that you are enjoying SquadCon. Thank you.